A year ago, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky received standing ovations in the U.S. Congress in his first overseas trip since Russian troops invaded his country.
Ukraine is alive and kicking.
He was seen as a fierce defender of an underdog nation that had stopped Moscow's mighty army at the gates of Kyiv. And Congress approved more than $110 billion in military aid.
President Zelensky,
But a year later, Zelensky is back in Washington, and he's running into a wall of partisan gridlock. Instead of addressing joint sessions of Congress, he met behind closed doors with lawmakers on Tuesday. Congress has approved no new assistance for Kyiv since a Republican majority took power last January. Republicans have been reluctant to sign off on a funding request from Democratic President Joe Biden. Republican House Speaker Mike Johnson said after meeting with Zelensky that Biden's administration must provide more detail about how the money would be used.
What the Biden administration seems to be asking for is billions of additional dollars with no appropriate oversight, no clear strategy to win, and none of the answers that I think the American people are owed.
Meanwhile, the clock is ticking down. The White House told Congress earlier this month the government will no longer have funding to provide more weapons for Ukraine after the end of the year. Democratic Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer said Ukraine needed the assistance as soon as possible.
He needs the aid quickly. If we don't give the aid quickly, several things will happen. First, the military needs, but second, Europe and many other allies will say, what is going on here? They're not giving them the aid. Thank you.
There are just 3 days before Congress recesses for the year on Friday, and Republicans in the House have refused to pass a spending package that contains $61.4 billion in Ukraine aid, unless it also includes funding to stop migrants from crossing the southern U.S. border. Bolstered by billions of dollars in U.S. arms, humanitarian aid, and intelligence, Ukraine was able to fend off Russia's initial attempt to sweep the country. But Kyiv failed to break through Russian defensive lines in a major counteroffensive push this year, and Russia is now on the offensive in the east.
Well, Mr. President, welcome back.
Thank you so much.
Welcome back to the White House.
Thank you so much, Mr.
And the Oval Office. And it's great to be at your side once again. We're going to stay at your side. You know, we stand at a real inflection point in history. I know you and I have talked about this, where the decisions we make now are going to determine the future for decades to come, particularly in Europe. And this is one of those moments. Congress needs to pass a supplemental funding for Ukraine before they break for the holiday recess, before they give Putin the greatest Christmas gift they could possibly give him. And so because we've seen what happens when dictators don't pay the price for the damage and the death and the destruction they cause, and they keep going when no price is paid. The threats to America, to Europe, and the world will only keep rising if we don't act. And I intend that we act. The American people, Democrats and Republicans alike, I think, understand this, and they understand the very real fight that's going on right now. In the winter, this winter, Putin plans once again to bombard Ukraine's electric grid, intends to, with rockets and plunging families into darkness in the coldest part of the year, and doing great damage. We can't and won't let him succeed. We mustn't let him succeed in that. Mr. President, I've called on Congress to do the right thing, to stand with Ukraine and to stand up for freedom. And I want to thank you for being here. You're going to help the cause, and I don't want you giving up hope.
Thank you so much, Mr. President. Dear journalists, are really glad to be here at the White House today and share some very important messages. Thank you for the invitation. They prove every day that Ukraine can win. And our forces are advancing, and we have successfully defeated Russia in the Black Sea. Regarding our reforms, EU integration, Ukraine continues to reform its... And that's significant. Ukraine is gradually becoming less dependent on aid, and we are moving to the right direction, and I want to discuss with the President how to strengthen it, especially enhancing our air defense and ability to destroy Russia's logistics. Our goals for 24 are clear: take away Russia's superiority and disrupt their offensive operations.
Putin has failed in his effort to subjugate Ukraine. The brave people of Ukraine have defied Putin's will at every turn, backed by the strong and unwavering support of the United States and our allies and partners of more than 50 nations in Europe and the Indo-Pacific. And Ukraine will emerge from this war proud, free, and firmly rooted in the West unless we walk away. But without supplemental funding, we're rapidly coming to an end of our ability to help Ukraine respond to the urgent operational demands that it has. Putin is banking on the United States failing to deliver for Ukraine. We must prove him wrong.
No matter what Putin tries, he hasn't won any victories. Thanks to Ukraine's success in defense, other European nations are safe from the Russian aggression, unlike in the past. Ukraine can now tackle the Russian dictatorship, so our children and other nations won't have to shed their blood and sacrifice lives defending against Russian aggression.
Please, have a seat. The American people can be and should be incredibly proud of the part they played in supporting Ukraine's success. We'll continue to supply Ukraine with critical weapons and equipment as long as we can, including $200 million I just approved today in a critical needed equipment, additional air defense interceptors, artillery, and ammunition. But without supplemental funding, we're rapidly coming to an end of our ability to help Ukraine respond to the urgent operational demands that it has. Putin is banking on the United States failing to deliver for Ukraine. We must prove him wrong. Putin has failed in his effort to subjugate Ukraine. Mr. President, I'll not walk away from Ukraine, and neither will the American people. A clear bipartisan majority of people across the United States and in Congress support your country. They understand, as I do, that Ukraine's success and its ability to deter aggression in the future are vital to security for the world at large. History will judge harshly those that turn their back on freedom's cause. The entire world is watching what we do, so let's show them who we are. America stands for freedom today, tomorrow, and always. America stands against tyranny and against oppression. And America stands with the people of Ukraine.
We stand firm. No matter what Putin tries, he hasn't won any victories. Thanks to Ukraine's success in defense, other European nations are safe from the Russian aggression, unlike in the past. Ukraine can now tackle the Russian dictatorship, so our children and other nations won't have to shed their blood and sacrifice lives defending against Russian aggression. We've already made significant progress. We've shown that our courage and partnership are stronger than any Russian hostility. Thank you very much.